Hi, I'm Elisa, and welcome back to my channel and On the Mind Goes. So today I just kind of wanted to talk about something that I found really helpful. So I've been in therapy since I had my youngest daughter, so she is now 10. And it's been with different therapists because we've moved, so it's been like on and off. But it was always just CBT, so just kind of like talk therapy where I'd go in. Um, but just recently, after getting my diagnosis or diagnoses, I decided that I would go back to therapy. Not that I was in like, so usually, like in the past, when I've seeked out therapy, it was because I was in like a dark place. And so I just needed help kind of pulling myself out of that. But this time I was like, okay, after getting my diagnoses, they said that like something that they would recommend to be helpful would to be get a therapist who also specializes in OCD. And so I found a therapist who it's online, but she focuses on like OCD and autism and ADHD and all of the things I have going on. So I thought I'd give it another try and just kind of see how that goes. And I will say, so I had my meeting with her last week and it was awesome. So in the past, I've had just like the talk therapy, and it's been helpful at times, but it's also been extremely contradicting and confusing to me. Because let's say I was having problems, I'm just making this up, but let's say I was having problems with a friend, and that friend and I are struggling. And so I go to my therapist and I kind of like tell her about that. And then she'll kind of explain it like, well, you need to put up boundaries and you need to do this. And, like you need to make sure that your voice is heard or whatever. And so, okay. So I'm like, that's my game plan. Like, that's what I got to do. But then let's say I try that and I go back and I talk to my therapist and I say either it went well or it didn't go well or however. And basically, then she would give me like a completely opposite like answer and tell me something more of like, well, you just need to understand that you are in a different place than they are. And so you need to just kind of be open to their needs basically. And so it was just always confusing to me because I everything always just seemed so to like one week it would be one thing and the next week it would be the opposite answer. And so I never knew what the right answer was. And for someone who also like struggles with like bipolar and all of that and like questions my own mind a lot of the times and doesn't always trust myself and my thoughts, then I never really knew like what the correct answer was. I never knew if, so I just always walked away because I was one of those that like was highly influenced by my therapist. And so, if my therapist said like I should try this, then I'm going to go home and I'm going to try it because I'm in therapy to grow and to get help. And so that's what I want. So, anyways, fast forward. And I was in therapy most recently, and for a couple years, and it was going pretty well. But again, it was the same thing where it was just confusing. Or other times, it would kind of be like, let's say me and my husband got into something. Well, then like I wouldn't meet with her until let's say the next week. So I'm trying to like keep a list of different things to talk about because I hate getting put on the spot and then I go blank. So whenever I would sit down to do like a therapy session, I wouldn't have anything to talk about. So I would try to, and that's not fun for either of us. So I would try to like just take notes of like things that had happened or things that came up. Um, but I found like looking back on it that that was just it wasn't helpful for me. It kind of kept me in this state of rumination and it allowed me to kind of like just fester in whatever kind of bad moments that I had. And so even if let's say my husband and I we worked it out, we're good, we moved on, I still needed something to talk about in therapy. And so I would like bring that whole subject up again and like what happened and all of that. And so really it just wasn't that helpful. And so I ended up um stopping therapy. Well, I missed an appointment and then I just never made another appointment. And so I kind of ghosted her, which I didn't mean to do, but it is what it is. Um so anyway, so I just found a new therapist and I met with her last week. And I wasn't quite sure how it was going to go, but I basically was going in there, and when I was meeting her in my head, instead of like them kind of asking me questions and seeing like where I am, like I wanted to go in there and tell them like this is what I'm looking for. And what I was looking for is someone who is neuro affirming. So somebody who says, yes, you have autism, OCD, ADHD, bipolar, like all of this, but we don't think we need to fix you. There's nothing wrong with you. We just need to kind of show you how to work with your own brain and like kind of help develop your strengths and different things like that and help you with struggles and working past those and whatever. So, um, so that's what I did when I went in and I had the meeting with her. I kind of just, well, it was over Zoom, but I told her that, what I really am looking for is somebody who can help me better understand my brain and to work with my brain versus trying to fix me. Um, and I told her about the past and how like talk therapy hasn't really worked for me that well and the reasons why. And so we got to talking and I was just kind of like sharing sort of like my background, my history. And as we were talking, she just was very open and very helpful. Like it turned out that my therapist also has autism, ADHD, and some other things. And so so it was like having somebody who has that lived experience made such a difference because we spent a lot of the time kind of like talking through things that work for us, things that we've struggled with. I told her, we were talking about like meals that like how we struggle with making meals and like how crock pot meals are the way to go, or that's kind of a dumb example, but we talked about like all kinds of stuff and like she was like, so how many different planners have you bought, or what do you use to keep track of stuff and all this kind of stuff. And and she was even like, I'm gonna email you all kinds of information. And she's like, I just do that. So I've checked it off. I know that I've done it. She's like, and I'm going to also email you. That way you have my email. And she's like, you can email me anytime. So if you have a question, if there's something that popped in your head or whatever, or you're struggling, like just email me. And she's like, usually I'll get back to you within like 3 days. She's like, because sometimes with her brain, it's the same thing where she will like be up in the middle of the night and like that's when then she'll kind of go through whatever emails and so she'll respond then. And so it was just really nice. And so I started keeping a list because originally she was like, "Well, what do you want to work on?" And I was like, "I don't know." Um, but because again, I was put on the spot. But as I was kind of thinking about that, and I kind of walked away and was like, well, what am I really looking for in therapy this time? Because I'm not looking for somebody to like help me talk through all of my problems, nor am I looking for like, yes, after getting this like autism diagnosis, I can kind of like go back and different things are making a lot of sense. Like, oh, that explains that, or that explains why I responded that way, or acted this way, or felt this way. And and so, but I told her that really my goal is not to go back and like rehash like all of my past or all of my childhood and like, oh, it could have been so much different if I would have known, that I had autism or whatever, like way back when, because that's not helpful. Like that doesn't help me move forward. It doesn't help anything. And so I really want to, like what I told her is I really just want to focus on growth and I want to focus on like some of my struggles, such as, my OCD tendencies, my trichotillomania, like different things like that, which if you don't know what that is, that's hair pulling. Um, and so different things like that that I just really want to work on. But I told her, really, I just want to learn more about like the strengths and like my brain and how to kind of work with it and to better show up for myself and to work on like unmasking and like what that looks like and also to kind of be able to not go back and rehash a bunch of stuff but just try to like better understand kind of because yes, it would have been nice to know that I had all of this going on prior, but at the same time, this is what made me who I am and how I am. And so it is what it is. So let's like pick up the pieces and move forward from here and see what we do. And so it was just really helpful because we were even talking about things. She's like, so how many planners have you tried? Or what do you use to keep track of stuff? And I told her, I have, if you guys haven't got this, a skylight calendar, which is really helpful because it's not only on our wall that we can then like kind of put stuff in there, but it's also on all of our phones and everything is connected. And so that's just a really nice, like easy way for me, like even in the morning because I won't remember what appointments I have in the morning to just kind of like open it up and see what do I have going on today. And sometimes there's nothing, and that's really nice. But other times I'll see like an appointment that I totally forgot about. So we were just talking about that, and I told her how I had tried like everything. Like I've made huge boards and all kinds of stuff and different planners. And we talked about how like planners are not like our favorite because they're pretty. And she's like, I don't want to mess mine up or rip out the pages. And so she was like, well, what I use right now to keep track of like my life and my thoughts are like is a composition notebook. And I just kind of like write on it, make my list, I'll rip it out and I'll kind of like just kind of go back and forth. Because I told her I'm the same way where I sometimes have so much stuff going on in my head that I just have to like write it down. Because if not, then it just stays circling in there of all these like, oh, I need to make a dentist appointment. I need to do this. I need to do that. And so when it's all in my head, it just becomes very overwhelming. And so sometimes I just need to write it down. That way it gets it out. And then I can cross it off as I do it, or at least it's not taking up like space in my head at the time. But so that was really helpful. And it was nice to find somebody who has that lived experience because I have found that, I mean, and I think part of this probably is having so many therapists throughout my time and also like different psychiatrists. And the fact that it was me, myself, who did my own research and came to started leading down this road towards like autism and all of that. And so I don't know where I was going with that. But so it was just nice to have somebody who has that lived experience, who understands, who I feel I can like talk to because she'll get it. So all I wanted to say really in that is I highly recommend that if you are going to seek out a therapist, granted CBT or talk therapy might work for you, but I would highly recommend finding somebody who also struggles with the same things because I think like in the past, like possibly before you'd be like, oh, well, there's probably like not a therapist who has like autism and ADHD and all of that kind of stuff. But there are. And it can just be something that is just really affirming to know that one, they're a therapist. They've made something of themselves. They're doing something, and it doesn't mean that like I'll never work again. Okay, whatever. I'm just going off on a tangent right there. Ignore that. Um, but so yeah, so and I was telling her like the other things I want to work on are like my follow through because I suck at that. And I've joked that like I really need like a life manager because I have all of these ideas. Like I have a blog, I have a jewelry business, I have, I whatever. I have a bunch of different things going on, but I like if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And so I'll totally forget that I had created a jewelry site and then it kind of went away. And then I forget that, oh yeah, I haven't even updated my blog to say that, oh, I got these diagnoses now or anything like that. And so, but again, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And so every once in a while, I'll think about it and I'll go on it, but then a new thought will come in my head and I'll get sidetracked and I'll switch to a different tab and then I totally forget to go back to it. So, so it's really hard to like be in my brain.